Down a little over a week ago, President Trump taking to Twitter overnight, pressing politicians to move forward on immigration, tweeting that Democrats just aren't calling out DACA. Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer have to get moving fast or they'll disappoint you again. We have a great chance to make a deal or blame the Dems. March 5th is coming fast. In September, President Trump moved to end the DACA program, which protects children brought into the country illegally. He then gave lawmakers a March 5th deadline to come up with a solution, and the president is continuing to hammer the issue.
Nearly 7 in 10 Americans support an immigration reform package that includes a permanent solution on DACA. It's not dreamers. Don't fall into that trap. And I said the other night, you know, we have dreamers too. We have dreamers in this country too. We can't forget our dreamers. I have a lot of dreamers here.
This comes as ICE has doubled down on an existing policy that allows agents to arrest criminal aliens in courthouses. The acting director says this is about safety. Critics, though, fear family members could be arrested in court as well.
For every criminal public safety threat that we can't take custody of in the safety and security of a county jail means one of our officers has to knock on a door.
We will not stand for actions by ICE that are repressive and that endanger families of our citizens.
We want ICE out!
To emphasize the importance of it all, the president plans to visit the Customs and Border Protection National Targeting Center later today. Heather.
All right, Will Carr live for us. We'll see what happens. Thank you. Well, some disturbing news here. A school shooting to tell you about that left 4 students injured is believed to be an accident, though. Police taking away the accused 12-year-old shooter from the Los Angeles Middle School in handcuffs, booking her with negligent discharge of a firearm, 12 years old. Witnesses say that the girl claimed she didn't know the gun was loaded. Now, the gunfire sending the school with nearly 400 students into lockdown, a bullet striking a 15-year-old boy in the head and 1 girl in the wrist. 2 other students were grazed, but everyone is expected to be okay, thank goodness. And the yoga instructor, do you remember this story? She was accused of driving off a cliff in Hawaii, killing her twin sister. Well, that person is now free. A judge finding that Alexandria Duvall was not guilty of second-degree murder. Witnesses in Honolulu, though, say that they saw Duvall and her twin sister, Anastasia, arguing inside a Ford Explorer right before the SUV plunged 200 feet over a cliff. Anastasia died at the scene. And some new details emerging in the Amtrak collision that happened in Virginia, killing 1 person and injuring at least 6. Several witnesses telling the NTSB that the crossing gates were not working in the days leading up to the crash. They weren't working correctly, and that they would sometimes go down with no train approaching. Now, dozens of GOP lawmakers and their families, they were all on board heading to a retreat in West Virginia when the train struck a garbage truck near Charlottesville. The feds hope to interview the driver and review security footage. And the oldest son of the late Cuban dictator Fidel Castro taking his own life after months of treatment for depression. State media reporting that Fidel Castro Diaz Balart has been in a deeply depressed state, and that's a quote, requiring hospitalization and outpatient follow-up. Diaz Balart had run Cuba's nuclear power program until a dispute with his father that happened. He was 68 years old. And did you know, it's back. It is Groundhog Day again. And in just a few hours, we're going to find out if we have 6 more weeks of winter. For more than 130 years, America's most famous groundhog, Punxsutawney Phil, has determined if we can look forward to an early spring. So the question remains, will Phil see his shadow? Let's take some bets. What do you think? You have to let us know before he does it, though. Well, the time now is about 9 minutes after the top of the hour. And Democrats are fighting tooth and nail as President Trump is expected to clear the way for the FISA memo to go public. Could happen today. And why our next guest, a former member of the FBI, says that the hunters are now turning into the hunted. And apparently a deadly train crash involving our nation's lawmakers is karma for being Republican. How author Stephen King is now walking back that remark.
The crumbs that they are giving to workers to kind of put the schmooze on is so pathetic.
Well, tax cuts are crumbs to Nancy Pelosi, but liberal states are trying to cash in to fight climate change. Booty shaking, all around. Well, in just a matter of hours, the American people may finally know what is inside that FISA memo as the left calls for House Intel Committee Chair Devin Nunes to step down. So what can we expect to learn today that has Democrats working so hard to keep the document sealed? Here now to weigh in is a former member of the FBI's Joint Terrorism Task Force, Steve Rogers. Steve, thank you so much for joining us.
You're welcome.
We were just discussing in the break, how this entire thing is making people who work with the FBI feel about the organization.
Well, to begin with, as I said all along regarding this case, the hunters have become the hunted, meaning that the top executives of the FBI have politicized the entire investigative process of that bureau. How do the agents feel? How does law enforcement across the board feel? 38 years, I'm a police officer. I've worked with FBI agents, the finest men and women in the world. So it affects their morale, but it doesn't affect their job, their mission. They're very dedicated and committed.
So with these people, just to be clear, that we're talking about involved in this are people at the top of the chain who took and made things political. That's what we're dealing with here.
Yes, you're dealing with the executive officers from the director. In this case, it was James Comey and some of his immediate subordinates. And I can tell you, Heather, they're fighting like mad to keep this memo quiet because there's going to be a domino effect that's going to run a chill up and down law enforcement across this nation when that memo is released.
And one of the people specifically, we're told, we think, in the memo itself would be Comey.
Well, Comey, there was a timeline. It began when he actually concluded the Clinton email investigation without interviewing all of the so-called witnesses, suspects, etc.
Without interviewing Hillary Clinton.
Exactly. So there was in my view, and in the view of a lot of law enforcement officers, they were manufacturing an outcome to hurt Donald Trump. And I thank God today that he was elected president, because could you imagine where we would be if he was not the president of the United States today?
Yeah, and what about calls for Devin Nunes to step down at this point?
Why step down? He is trying to be as transparent as possible, and all along he and others have said, release the memo, let the American people decide who's right and who's wrong. And they're going to decide, I believe, that the president was right all along and that the people are going to weigh on the side of the Republicans in this case because they're being transparent.
Do you trust for information to be redacted that would in any way have a negative effect in terms of our national security?
That's a lot of smoke and mirrors.
Okay.
I've dealt with a lot of secret information, top secret information. I have enough trust that the Department of Justice and at least the president's team are going to do the proper redacting so that national security will not be affected.
Because that's one of the excuses being used.
Oh, of course. They're going to use any excuse to stop this memo from being released. But we have a lot of smart people involved in this, and they're going to make sure our national security is not hurt.
I mean, should everything be released, though? What about the FISA warrant? I spoke with someone yesterday. They said, release all of it and let people make up their own mind. Yeah,
provided that it's redacted to the degree that it will protect national security. There's no, look, the FISA, the question here is, what did they use? What evidence? What probable cause did they use?
To get the FISA warrant to begin with. Yeah.
So there's your key, and that's really something they don't want released. I say release everything, provided it doesn't hurt national security.
And I just once again want to point out, it's the people at the top of the FBI who are reflecting bad on those men and women that go into communities and go out every day to do their job and protect us.
They're the best in the world, Heather, the best in the world. Unfortunately, they're getting hurt, but they'll recover.
Yeah.
They're good people.
They will, absolutely. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Well, the time now is about 17 minutes after the top of the hour, and our fitness trackers like Fitbit being used to track our military and us. The brand new security concern. This is huge. You have to hear it. Kurt, the cyber guy, has the steps that we all need to take to lock it down. And heart disease. It is the #1 killer of women, but 80% of those deaths can be prevented. Dr. Nicole Saphier is here with the risk factors on this National Wear Red Day. Welcome back. Oh, Canada, the country's Senate passing a bill changing its national anthem. True patriot love in all thy sons' command. That part right there, in all thy sons' command, will now be made more gender neutral, and it will read, quote, in all of us command. The bill now heading to the governor's desk, or the governor general's desk, to become a law. Well, despite the president's historic tax breaks, some liberal states still want to raise taxes. Why? all because of global warming. Now, Washington State announcing a proposal to tax $20 per ton of carbon emissions. And that means higher cost at the pump, higher cost heating your homes, and even plugging in an electric car. Well, Oregon is also looking to pass similar tax hikes aimed at limiting greenhouse gas emissions. If you will notice, I'm wearing red today. Everybody should be wearing red today. It's for a very important reason. It is National Wear Red Day to raise awareness for women's heart disease. It's a disease that kills approximately one woman every minute. So what do you need to know to stay healthy? Dr. Nicole Saphier is a radiologist, and she joins me now to talk more about this. Also wearing red today. Thank you very much for joining us. This is a very important topic.
Yes,
so
it is.
One woman every minute?
Yes, what a lot of people don't recognize is 1 in 3 women will actually die of heart disease. That's nearly 15 times more than are going to die of breast cancer. But we tend to get caught up in some of the other things, but the far majority of women will actually die of heart disease. It's the #1 killer in women, but also in men as well. But women tend to be at a higher risk and not be as aware of their risk.
Well, let's take a look at some of those risk factors. We can pull those up for people at home. Risk factors, first of all, that you can't change, okay? There's your age, your gender, and genetics. But the modifiable risk factors, things that you can change, take some control over: your high cholesterol, high blood pressure, sedentary lifestyle, tobacco use, and then type 2 diabetes.
That's right. So you can't do certain things about your gender, your age. If you're a 55-year-old woman who has a strong family history of cardiovascular disease, you actually are at a pretty high risk of heart disease. But there are 3 things that you can do that can decrease about 80% of all
Even
deaths.
if you have a family history?
So the family history, you absolutely want to go speak to your physician about it, because you may need to be on some medications to decrease that risk. You can't get rid of that risk, but there are things that you can do to further decrease it, and that is having a heart-healthy diet. And with that means small portion sizes, low salt, low fat, low carbohydrates. On top of that, get active, get out there. Think of every hour you spent sitting either in the car, watching TV, be moving. It's not just going to the gym for an hour a day. You need to be doing more than that. Use the stairs.
All day. Doesn't count if you just get up for 30 minutes.
No, however long you're sitting during the day, try and be active.
Oh, that's
Using
a good
the stairs, walking a little bit more, even going around the block, taking a break at work.
Very good tip. All right.
And also, stop smoking, as well as try to avoid secondhand smoke. People don't understand just being around smoke is putting you at a significantly increased risk of having a heart attack.
Yeah, that's so difficult. And diet as well.
Absolutely. And everything in moderation. Doesn't mean you can't treat yourself every now and then, but really having a healthy diet is going to be huge prevention.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us. An important day. I'm sure you'll be talking about this throughout the day. We appreciate you joining us. Well, the time now is about 24 minutes after the top of the hour. Weasels and liars. He was one of the first to go, and now fired FBI Director James Comey is lashing out again ahead of the FISA memo release. And he suffered devastating injuries when he grabbed a live enemy grenade to save his fellow soldiers. Now, Leroy Petrie is one of the 15 Medal of Honor recipients getting the Super Bowl spotlight. And he joins us to talk about the big day live. Stay tuned for that. Welcome back to Fox and Friends First. Back with this Fox News alert for you. It is now a matter of when, not if, President Trump is expected to release the controversial FISA memo to the American people, and it could happen as early as today. The highly classified report alleging abuse of power within the FBI during the Obama administration. But Democrats intensifying their fight against the release, claiming House Intelligence Committee Chairman Devin Nunes is trying to undermine the Russia investigation, sparking an all-out war on transparency.
I think on the other side of that, it is patriotism itself and a duty to uphold our oath to support and defend the Constitution, and a duty that we have to do oversight, particularly over the FBI and the DOJ. If we turned our backs to that, if we turned a blind eye to that, shame on us if we trailed in the dust the integrity of this country. Somebody's got to look over their shoulder.
Well, the White House says it is first conducting a national security and legal review before the release. Well, Democrats accusing Devin Nunes of changing the FBI memo before its release, calling for him to be removed as the House's intelligence chair. But Fox News legal analyst Greg Jarrett says that it's actually Senator Adam Schiff who is the villain in this political tale.
Look, the fact is that there are plenty of villains to go around, top officials at the FBI, Rod Rosenstein at the Department of Justice, but lately the biggest villain is Adam Schiff, the ranking Democrat on the Intel Committee. He was spent months trying to suppress
he lied about
this
Nunes
information. And now he is trying to misrepresent the truth and the law by mischaracterizing the changes in the memo as a pretense for stopping it. This isn't a war against the FBI. This is an attempt to hold people in government accountable for their wrongdoing. And Adam Schiff knows that. He knows the rules, and he is aiding and abetting the cover-up of potential crimes.
Well, Senator Schiff is the fourth Democrat to call for Devin Nunes, author of that memo, to be removed from the House Intelligence Committee. So we'll see what happens today. Well, just days from competing in the Olympic Games, North Korea continues to play the blame game over nuclear tensions with the South. And the rogue regime's foreign minister accusing the U.S. of, quote, throwing a wet blanket over peace efforts on the peninsula. Now, this is despite the United States and South Korea postponing joint military drills until after the Games in Pyeongchang. And Nikki Haley, meantime, is slamming Russia for meddling in the 2016 election. The ambassador to the United States promising swift action from the U.S. to keep it from happening in the future.
Russia is not our friend. There is no reason to think the Russian interference made any difference between who won and lost in the U.S. elections. But the very fact that they did it is an outrageous thing, and something the administration is taking steps to prevent in the future.
Well, Haley went on to say that the Trump administration has been the toughest on Russia since the Reagan administration. And to France, where they could use a loophole to work with Iran that could sidestep U.S. sanctions. A French state-owned bank claiming that the country will offer export credits to Iranian buyers, but would not involve any U.S. currency. That would allow France to still negotiate profitable trade deals. France is part of the Obama-era Iran nuclear deal, which President Trump, you know, has threatened to completely pull out of. And the Navy is punishing more sailors for their roles in two deadly collisions that killed 17 sailors. Back in June, you'll remember the USS Fitzgerald. It crashed into a civilian merchant ship off the coast of Japan, killing 7 sailors. And then 2 months later, the USS McCain collided with an oil tanker near Singapore, leaving 10 sailors dead in that. The executive officer, command master chief, 1 officer from the Fitzgerald, and an enlisted sailor from the McCain were all found guilty of dereliction of duty. Both ship captains and 3 officers from the Fitzgerald now face a separate hearing next March for potential court-martials. And you have to hear about this story. You may be using one of these right now, but this morning there's a brand new security alert about fitness apps that could be tracking more than just your steps. And the threat is so severe, it's even forced the United States military to take action. Joining me now with everything that we need to know is cyber guy Kurt Knutson. Thank you so much for joining
Heather,
us.
good to see you.
So I didn't wear my Fitbit this morning.
We're
Probably
kind of scared
a good
of
thing.
it right now,
yeah.
right? So it's Fitbit, it's a smartphone, it's any device that has GPS inside of it is the thing we need to be concerned about.
Which just about all of them do.
Activity tracker, right.
Yeah.
So these activity trackers, here was the thing that happened. We all heard about the story, you likely heard about it, about the 20-year-old kid who brought the world the attention to the fact that a heat map, just like this one, you could zoom in on military bases around the world and see where troops are training. You could see the routes that trucks are on and where the time is spent.
So this heat map, it uses GPS.
So what it's doing is this is a bunch of fragments of data coming from Fitbits and from phones on activity trackers, and it's connected with a fitness app that's called Strava.
Okay.
Strava in Swedish means stride. So
I have that on my Peloton.
Yes.
Yes, I can actually connect it to that.
Right, and I bet you did not look at the fine print, because none of us do, of the terms and conditions when you downloaded that app or you agreed to start using it. And that's the big problem, because we've all been asleep at this one. The military now, also Pentagon, looking into this matter for how do we address what's already the cat's out of the bag. This fitness app is taking this data. They've made this heat map. They had really good intentions, but wow, this is horrible for the security of this country. And now for you and I, our own personal privacy and security is now jeopardized.
So what can you do?
Well, I mean, you probably didn't even know this. I mean, if you think about what's already tracking us,
right.
Look at Google Maps right now. Did you know that you agree when you use it that they can track everywhere you go in your phone if you've got that app on there? Well, they're going to be recording
even if you're not
you
using it.
Even if you're not
just
using it.
Just if it's on there.
Correct. And the reason they would do that is they'd say, hey, look, Heather, we want to bring you offers to our advertisers when you go down the road that might have the bakery and you want the bread there. So the other thing is like Facebook's facial recognition. You and I might have our privacy settings up, amped up all the way, but still Facebook, we've given them the opportunity and the right and permission to take our face image and look all across their platform. So if someone in Timbuktu posts your photo, Facebook goes, that's Heather, and they start linking that together, and they start wondering, like, who's this person in Timbuktu, and now where is that data sitting? So that data is now sitting on somebody's computer somewhere, and there's really this is like run amok in terms of
what do you do?
The Wild West of data right now. Right now, what the military needs to do is make a decision about, right now we need some immediate corrective action. You can't take this away. It's already there. It's already out there. Our enemies have it. So we might want to say to our troops at this point, maybe no wearing of any GPS device when you're active. And if it's not part of
maybe I'd say definitely.
And at the same time, you might want to say, what could we do as a country to have better communication with the developers of things like this so we don't put it out there and it doesn't cause this kind of harm? And at home, I mean, check the privacy settings on anything that's giving up your location.
Told us that before.
Today's the day to do that. So take a look at it. Check for anything that gives away your location. Just have a look and see what they're doing. They're pretty much out telling you what they're doing, but we just
no one's reading it.
Right.
Read the small print.
And then any of the apps that you're downloading in the future, always just have that in mind. What are they going to do with my information?
Right.
And have that in mind. And always, always, always just keep those privacy policies handy. One day you're going to want to look at them because this is just getting more and more serious.
Always assume they want the most information possible. I think that's a good tip. All right. Thank you so much. We appreciate it. Good to see you. Have a great weekend.
You too.
Well, the time now is about 20 minutes until the top of the hour. And weasels and liars. He was one of the first to go, and now fired FBI Director James Comey is now lashing out ahead of the FISA memo release. And streaming scam. Do you have Netflix? Another warning. I've got that too. What in the world is that warning? There's another new warning from police on that. And Nick Foles soaring to the Super Bowl, but are his plans afterwards? That's what we want to talk about that will make your morning. And Carly Shimkus is here with the higher calling for the Eagles quarterback.
Let's go on a living spree. They say the best things in life are free. The good life, it feel like.
Welcome back. Weasels and liars. Fired FBI Director James Comey lashing out on social media just hours before President Trump is expected to declassify the FISA memo. You can see some of what he wrote right there. Carly Shimkus with Fox News Headlines 24/7, Sirius XM 115, here with the controversy that he is now sparking. Another controversy he's sparking.
Oh, you know it. Another day ending in why another controversy. So former FBI Director James Comey sent out a fiery tweet applauding the FBI for speaking out against the memo's release. Now, he took to Twitter with this: all should appreciate the FBI speaking up. I wish more of our leaders would, but take heart. American history shows that in the long run, weasels and liars never hold the field so long as good people show up. Not a lot of schools or streets named for Joe McCarthy. And he is referring to Senator Joe McCarthy, who claimed high-ranking government officials were Soviet spies in the 1950s. The tweet also refers to the fact that the FBI released a statement warning about the memo's accuracy, saying that it might not be that accurate. Well, folks on Twitter are now sounding off. Eve says, you won't find any schools named after Comey either. Brenda tweets, you're speaking about being honest, practice what you preach. And Chris says, Comey, you and your brand of rogue agents are the weasels and liars. Can't you just zip it and go away? Well, Heather, we know why Comey is probably speaking out against this memo, because it would affect his time as FBI director.
Yeah, they're saying that there are 4 key elements that are going to be released released and come out of this, and Comey specifically is one of those involved. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, we'll wait and see on that.
So Stephen King, apparently he's sorry for it. A lot of folks, unfortunately, did this. They mocked that train wreck, and he's one of them.
Can you believe it? Yeah, the author, Stephen King, he made light of that deadly train crash that affected Republican members of Congress, tweeting, "A trainload of Republicans on their way to a pricey retreat hit a garbage truck. My friend Russ calls that karma." Well, it looks like the masses on social media scared him into apology, because he then said, "A rather thoughtless tweet from me concerning the train truck crash, for which I apologize if one is necessary. It should be pointed out, too, that those Republican politicians who can be heartless when they vote immediately got out to help." Is that an apology?
If one is necessary, I don't think that counts as an apology.
Yeah, it's like a very backhanded apology. Dreama says, "Tell Stephen King it is too little too late." He said exactly what he means to say, or he should not have said it. And Vicky says, "Wow, why bother with that apology? Keep digging the hole you are in."
Yeah, he should stick to writing novels and not tweets.
Yeah,
I think.
he's a smart guy.
Yeah.
Why do people say these things on social
because
media?
they think they can, and they can. Actually, they can. But
They
then you
can.
got to deal with the consequences.
That's right. Yes, you can.
So Nick Foles, this is a good story to end it on. He wants to become a pastor.
Yeah, he says that he does. I mean, he's probably not really thinking about it right now because, of course, the Super Bowl is just days away. But in a recent interview, he said that after he retires from the NFL, he is hoping to become a pastor. And he even took seminary classes in the off-season. A lot of people on social media were pretty surprised by this and pleased if you are a God-fearing person. Nick says, "Incredibly genuine young man. I pray he is led to do just that." And Debbie on Twitter also says, "Genuinely the most pure guy in the game."